Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Mom's Writers Club. I'm Jessica,
And I'm Sarah.
and today we are going to talk about Sarah's new business venture. And this is particularly important because it is, in fact, related to writing. Both Sarah and I have worked with editors and writing coach types in the past. We both have talked actually about helping other writers. We've both worked as mentors to other writers in the past. And the reason I'm telling you all of this is because Sarah has decided to launch her own, what do you call it? Author
I call
coaching
it
business.
author
Right?
coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us why you call it author coaching instead of book coaching like most people do.
Because while I'm really interested in making a manuscript better and in sort of the nuts and bolts of that, I'm also really interested in the author and in setting them up to write a better next book
Mhm.
and also kind of helping them develop their stamina and their endurance and their sort of sense of self and strength as an author. Because we all know that it's kind of a brutal process at times. I'm talking about going for traditional publishing. I have never self published. I have never wanted to. I totally respect people who do, but I just don't know anything about it. So, but I know that the process of becoming a traditionally published author is grueling and and it wears people out. I see this on social media all the time. People just really, really worn down by the process, and I really want to help people with that too. At the same time as working on their query letter and their manuscript and like making that all as great as possible.
It's funny. So with the book I'm working on right now, I had looked at hiring an editor, but what I realized is that I didn't want someone to just developmentally edit my book. I wanted someone to really look at me as an author in a bigger picture and help me
Yeah.
develop as an author and become a better writer, and better understand, I guess, not just the act of writing the book or like what was on the page, but I guess just help me become a better author. I guess I already said that. But so I
Yeah.
love doing it that way. I think that it's really great to get a developmental edit. It's really great to get a copyright edit and or copy edit and like have your manuscript look prettier or have those lines read a little bit smoother. But at the end of the day, you as an author want to constantly be improving. But also, I love what you said about helping querying authors because it is such a hard time. And just having someone to hold your hand can be so beneficial. You held my hand while I was querying, and you're very supportive.
And
I
likewise.
yeah. Well, and I think somewhere on your website, Sarah has a whole web page about this on her website. So I highly recommend checking it out. But she says something like she says that she's there also for like, I think you say book therapy. She's not a licensed therapist, but she's very qualified for this. I remember with The Good Doctor, I was struggling so much. I had to rewrite the first half of the book. And I remember Sarah got on the phone with me for like 2 hours. And we went through that book chapter by fucking chapter, trying to and she just like asked the right questions. She always asks the right questions. It actually annoys the shit out of me sometimes. I'm like, leave me alone. My book is great just how it is. But she always asks the important questions to help me like really figure out what is working or isn't working, or what I'm trying to do that I'm not actually doing, and helps me figure out how to get there. So Sarah's just really good at this. And I want to take a moment to say, like, we've had a lot of people ask us to promote things on our channel here, and we have always very politely said, we're sorry, we don't really do that. But with Sarah, like, one of the reasons we don't do that is because like I haven't used whatever your service is. I can't personally speak from experience that it's wonderful. So I'm not going to tell people that it is. I'm not going to promote something that I don't personally know is great. Like if Scrivener wanted us to promote them, I would, because I love Scrivener, you know? But I have worked with Sarah for 3 years, at least. Has it been almost 4 years? Because I think we met in winter of 2020. Damn girl. But
That's
anyway, and
crazy.
she's been my
Yeah.
critique partner that whole time. She read my query letter. She read my synopsis. She has read every book worth reading that I've ever written. I'm not counting those first couple, okay?
Yeah.
Um, and she
I'll be
just
the judge of that if I ever read them, but
you won't. So, but she's very good. She's good both at like looking at the big picture, but also sometimes I'm like, this paragraph doesn't make sense. Can you please help me like line edit it so it makes sense? And she helps me make it beautiful. So I feel like we can promote Sara here. One, because it's our channel and we do what we want. And two, because I can personally say she's fantastic to work with. So yeah, I highly recommend her. If you're just trying to kind of figure out what to do with your book, if you're trying to revise it, if you as an author need someone to be your mentor or hold your hand or help you get through the querying trenches, Sara will be great for any and all of it. Um,
so I
oh,
would be saying
yeah.
all these nice things about Jess too.
But
If
I'm
Jess
not
were,
doing.
if I had the opportunity or an excuse
Well, thank
to,
you. Thank you.
but just want you to know that.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I want to talk about some of the services you provide. Can I do that? Can I be salesy for you? Is this
Um,
salesy?
yeah, but I want to say, I want to say
Yeah.
something because when you were saying, when you were looking for someone to work with, on your current book and you didn't want
Hmm.
just somebody to developmentally, edit it and send it back to you. I was going through the exact same thing, earlier this summer when I was just really struggling with writing this book. I mean, I have been trying to write this book for a year and it just
Yeah.
keeps morphing and changing. And I had really lost confidence. Like I had gotten to this point where I was like, I can't do this. I have to write something else. I have to
I
start
remember that.
completely over. Maybe I just suck. Maybe this is the end of the
You
road for
don't
me.
suck.
Like
It was a difficult spot.
I know I don't suck, but I was just in that place of like, just really feeling shaky in my self confidence. And
I would like to point out that Sara is about to publish her second book and she has a high-powered agent and she felt this way.
yeah,
So if you're the person in the querying trenches right now or trying to revise your book, like we all feel this way at some point. It's not just you. It's a normal part of the writing publishing process and it's
totally.
really hard. And it even kind of dips into being a little bit of like a mental health wellness thing.
Totally. And what I was looking for, so I didn't like have something to send to an editor. What I was
Yeah.
looking for was somebody who would like help me get out of this quagmire. I knew I had all these good pieces and all these strong pieces, and I knew I had this character that I was really bonded with, and things that I wanted to say, and scenes that did work, but like
So
it
what
was
did you
just like a total mess. I went on Readsy and I found actually two people who I just had, I think each of them I did 3 1 hour just Zoom chats with.
do? Yeah.
And we just talked. I told them basically kind of where I was and what I needed. And they were like, okay, let's talk. And they both had very different, personalities and approaches that complemented each other really well. And it was so, so helpful, to get to talk to somebody, to hear myself reflected back, to help them kind of gather things in. And it was so helpful.
The way you've described it is to me is that like you really realized how life-changing within your writing, the writing part of your life that was, and that you found so much value in it. And I know that you've also mentored several writers through the Women's Fiction Association.
Mhm.
To me, from what our conversations have consisted of and our very long voice messages back and forth, is that you want to be able to do that for other writers. You want to be able to like help them figure out what it is that they are doing.
Yeah, that's part of it for
Yeah.
sure.
I want you to talk about how you're doing your querying package because I absolutely love that you're doing it this way. And I wish someone had been doing this when I was querying because I would have done this. Tell me,
So,
let's say I email you and wanna like have you help me with my query. Tell me all about it.
okay, so here is my plan for a query letter or a query package, which would be query letter, synopsis, and first 5 pages. Um,
Mhm.
okay, so I had a writer friend at one point. I This was a while ago. This was like several years ago, And I offered to help her with her query letter. So she sent it to me, and she sent me the synopsis. She had, like, pretty thorough synopsis, beginning to end of the book, and then her query letter. And I think I had read the first few chapters of her book. And I looked at her query letter, and I looked at her synopsis, and I was like, wait a minute, why isn't, like, this is the coolest thing about your book, and it's not even in your query letter. Like, it was
Mhm.
this big, cool, hooky, juicy element, and I was like, put it in the query letter. And I realized that, like, if I just read what you've written and, like, help you kind of polish it up, like, that's a good service, but that may miss something really big. So the way I want to do it is to actually chat for a half an hour and
Mhm.
basically just say, tell me what your book is about. Because
Yeah.
then you all not only do you get all those elements, but you also kind of get what's exciting about the book to the author. Like, what are you jazzed about with this book?
Yeah.
And that can bring, like, a lot of more energy and, like, spice
And
into
substance.
your presentation, into your pitch.
I so appreciate that. I've done a lot of helping other authors with queries too, between serving as a mentor and just Moms Writers Club people and writing friends. And I have had that happen a couple times as well, where like I've talked to them about their book because we're friends, and then I'm reading their query letter and I'm like, you missed the hook of the book. And it's funny because like what people think should be in a query letter is such a broad range. I've seen people
Yeah.
treat it like the cover letter for a resume, which it's not. And I've seen people treat it almost like a scaled down synopsis, which it's not.
Yeah.
And I have seen many people miss like some of the most important elements. And I think by talking to them that way, you offer a service that I've literally seen nowhere else. And I think you will help people on a whole different level than just, reading their query letter, making some corrections, sending it back, wash, rinse, repeat. So I
Right.
think it's really exciting that you're doing it that way. So there are a lot of genres out there. And can you talk a little bit about where you are most comfortable working, but where you also might be helpful working outside of that?
Yeah. My gravitational center is in contemporary fiction, women's fiction, quote unquote, literary fiction, sort of general fiction, and that covers a lot of ground. I have been a critique partners with Jess for long enough that I have my head wrapped around a little bit around thriller. I feel like there are a lot of genres where I can certainly help make it a better book, make it a punchier first 5 pages, better query letter, all those things. But, it's more like in terms of, like, a full manuscript. If I were to read a
Yeah.
full manuscript, I think that I'm not as conversant in the genre expectations for other genres, for thrillers, for even romance. Like, I know a lot about romance, but I'm not a big romance reader. So,
No, that makes sense to me totally. It's funny because I was thinking about this. I recently was a mentor for AWP, and there weren't actually a lot of submissions within my genre. So I really had to look at where did I think I could help people based off of their writing sample. And I did choose someone outside of my own genre because I felt like their writing was really strong, but also I felt like I could help with the basic tenets of story and character, which
yeah.
exist in every genre. And I could tell that they were a little like, why did you choose me, thriller writer?
Right,
Like they
right.
straight up told me that. But by the end, they told me like how helpful they found it. And with querying too, because that's, across the board, whether you write horror or romance, like a lot of doing that well. It doesn't matter what genre you're in as long as you can like see it. So
Totally.
I think that some of that stuff, even if you don't have a ton of experience in that particular genre, you can do it well despite that, if
Yeah,
that
I mean,
makes sense.
and I have done a deep, like, multi-years long dive into story structure because that's
Ooh,
what I was
will
missing.
you talk about that? Talk about
Yeah,
like some of your experience leading up to this. Like tell us your
yeah, yeah. So,
publication history and all
yeah.
that.
So I spent 4 years 3 novels and 167 agent rejections getting to be represented by the fabulous Laura Bradford. And my first try at querying, my first manuscript that I sent out there, I got a really good response. And I got a number of requests, and they all said the same thing. They all said, we love the voice, we love the setting, we love this character, but the story's not working. You know, it sort of doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't open up. It's sort of like one thing after. And they had different ways of saying it, and they were very nice about it. But it was all like voice great, prose great, character great, story meh. And so I was like, okay, I know what my homework is now. That was several years ago. And I spent like a good 2 years digging into like all the craft books and all the videos that I could find and all the any instruction that I could find on story, from like the most totally woo woo to the most like straight up, you know, bricks and mortar screenwriting type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I've seen, and that was successful. I basically rewrote that first book. I did a like end to end rewrite, and it became the third book that I queried, which became Johanna Porter Is Not Sorry, which was my debut novel. So it worked. And what I'm seeing, what I see when I read, like when I beta read for people or when I critique partner read for people, is that the fatal flaw is almost never in the prose. That
Mm-hmm.
the fatal flaws are almost always in and they're not usually in the premise either. Like I've seen a lot of work where the premise is really awesome, but just the structure of the story is not hanging together. And that crosses genres, you know, unless until you get into really like more experimental stuff in literary fiction or in speculative. But even then, like having a sense of how your story is built is only ever going to help. So
I really appreciate that because I feel like that's what all of my feedback from agents also said. And it was, I don't think I did nearly the deep dive you did. You're very skilled at it. I'm still figuring it out sometimes, it seems like.
I would have loved, like 3 years ago, I would have loved to have me now to like
Yes.
help tell me what to do, you know?
So let's see. So you do queries, you do query packages.
Mhm.
And then I know that you're also going to do like longer feedback. Like if someone wants a full manuscript,
Mhm.
like I don't know if you would call it an edit or what you would call it, but you are doing that, and that you start with a 15-minute free Zoom chat or phone call
Mhm.
to kind of see if you all are a good match. And I love that you
Mhm.
do that. I saw an editor post one time, like, what does it matter what I'm like on the phone? Like, an edit is an edit. And I was like, I would never hire that person because
Yeah.
having the right rapport and feeling like you can trust the person you're working with really matters when it's something as personal as your book.
Well, and then you're going to spend, hopefully, you are going to spend some time on the phone with
Mhm.
that person after the edit, clarifying and asking follow-up questions and, you
Oh,
know, trying
totally.
to learn more about their insight into your work and all that stuff. So I want to know that I can talk to that person. I also want to
Absolutely.
know, like, as a author coach, I don't want to promise something I can't deliver.
Yeah.
So I want to be
That's
really clear on what an author feels like they need. You know, and once I hear that, then I can really decide like, yes, I can do that, or no, that's not in my wheelhouse. And then we can
yeah.
move on to, are we a good fit?
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
absolutely. I really like that. I talked to an editor once who their turnaround time was just like outside of the realm of anything I could like ever live with.
Mhm.
Um
Like too long.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I realized that that's like a weird tiny thing and maybe doesn't have to do with rapport, but like I quickly realized that was not an editor I would ever want to work with just because it wouldn't work for my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can be a lot of little things. It can be just how you get along with someone, but making sure you find the right match.
Yeah.
You say that you do brainstorming, creative process work, literary coaching, discussing query strategy. I love this. So one of the hardest things about being a newly querying author is understanding like how to query. And it took me a couple books to figure this out, but it would have been really nice to know at the beginning. And we have an episode on it, but getting to talk to someone about your actual book and getting to say, hey, what do you think about this agent? Or how do I find the right agent for my book? Like, where should I start? Having someone to talk to about that is just so
Right.
helpful.
And like, what do they mean by synopsis? And how am I supposed to write a synopsis? That's only 500 words. I mean, there,
I'm having flashbacks.
I know. It's a constantly changing landscape. Like people, even agents use the same words to mean different things. And it can
They
be
do. It drives me
super
nuts.
confusing. Yeah, how to kind of how to kind of game that out and how to, tools for going through that process without getting completely beat down,
Yeah, for
and there
sure.
are, it's learnable. Like it's hard. And I have absolutely shed my share of tears and had late nights up, you know, texting with Jess.
Sorry. No, we texted and talked on the phone, and there were tears and sometimes
Yeah.
dreams.
But there are also ways to kind of maintain your stamina for rejection and for the kind of like super weird feedback that you may or may not get on your book that is you may or may not should
Honestly,
try and
just
interpret.
just to have someone help you interpret feedback, like the copy and paste rejection that looks like it's personalized but isn't,
Yeah.
one of the worst things. I remember getting, you think that like personalized feedback is really good, and typically it is, right? But I remember getting this one round of personalized feedback by an agent I later realized was potentially a little bit abusive to their clients.
Mm.
And I remember being like, what the F am I supposed to think about this? Because it was both complimentary, but also like kind of messed up. And
Mm.
having had a more experienced person to understand how to handle that and deal with that and whether or not to apply it to my work, because like
Right.
a lot of it, I
Right.
was like, I feel like this is a very subjective opinion. And I get that. I get that agents have subjective opinions and there's nothing wrong with that. But it was like, do I do something with it?
Right. And this is
Or is this like,
exactly why
yeah,
I'm calling it author coaching. You can really get mixed up when you like have a lot of beta readers and a lot of critique partners and they're kind of saying different things and you're trying to incorporate all the things and after a while
too
you're
many
like,
cooks in the kitchen.
yeah, and after a while you're like, I don't even know like what's mine anymore or I feel, you can feel like you've sort of lost touch with something and my come from is really that like I want to know what the author um, wants out of this, wants out of this working relationship and wants out of their story, and see it more as a process of guiding and helping guide the author towards the story that they want to tell rather than taking the story that's in front of me and marking it up and making it, you know, this is
Yeah,
why
more
this is
correct.
yeah, I mean this is why the phone call or the Zoom call, you know,
Yeah.
to really understand like what is the story you're trying to tell, what's important about it to you.
Yeah. I think that's really good. I think it would have been very beneficial to have that early on.
And I actually have had that from a couple of the people that I've worked with, which is part of what inspired me to do this.
Yeah.
Like
That's
I
awesome.
worked with Kate Bronning, and she has been amazing. Kate Angelella is another editor or creative coach that I've worked with, and she's amazing. And both of them were they were very tuned in to this being my story and what did I care about and what, you know,
No, I
like
get that. And
they weren't editors, they were guides, and it's exactly what I needed. I mean, they were editors, they're great editors, but you
you're an
know.
author guide. I love it. Okay, I'm not changing topics, but hold up that mug, girl. See that mug?
Oh yeah,
I
you're
keep
becoming an
smiling
author
and
and
I keep
shit.
getting a glimpse of the mug. Okay. So
My
the last, God,
16-year-old daughter gave me this mug, just so
I
you
love
know.
it.
That's how we roll in my house.
So there's one last thing that I want to talk about with us. I think one of the hardest parts for me when I was trying to figure out the author stuff is that when I tried to get help from people or looked into like working with an editor or whatever. I found that a lot of the time it was so expensive that it was like, I mean, I can pay for like the cheapest query package and like that's it. And like I can't afford anything else. And I
Hmm.
definitely never could have afforded like an author coaching type of thing. And here's the thing, like I fully respect that people charge what they feel like they deserve to be paid per hour. I love that you have told me that you are trying to make this affordable. You are
It's
charging
important
what you
to
feel
me.
is also fair for your time, which I
Hmm.
thoroughly appreciate because I think that everybody should, but that you are also trying to keep it from being something that's $1,000 a month. Because I'm sorry, but who has an
Yeah.
extra $1,000 a month sitting around, which not trying to throw shade on anyone is what I'm seeing some people charging,
Yeah.
which seems like
Yeah.
a lot to me, unless
Yeah.
you're like a Penguin Random House editor with 30 years of experience or something wild like that.
Right. And
And
even then, I might not need a monthly thing. I mean, and part of what I want to do also is be really flexible. I want
yeah,
to, like you can get on Zoom with me for an hour for $65. We can talk about whatever you want. Because that's just sometimes what you need, and sometimes you need, I just want to be really flexible about responding to authors' needs,
yeah.
because rather than having authors have to fit into like some kind of package that I invented that serves my needs, I'm pretty good at boundaries. So I think I'm comfortable with being flexible and working in different ways.
Sara does have a couple of different query packages, so you can check them out on her website. She also talks about like general other options she does, but I also know that if you felt like you had a specific combination of needs for your book slash author self, that Sara would be willing to work with you to like find something that you both felt worked for you. So I'm
Love
going
it.
to suggest that you go take a peek at Sara's website. She's going to put it down below. I don't know who's going to be on the top or bottom, if we're going to be side by side once this. Zoom always plays tricks with us, but
Right.
it's sararead.net, SARAREAD.net. And then if you click on her drop down menu, it says author coaching. So just click on that and you'll get all the info and you can contact her through her website. I would also encourage you, even if you just have questions and you're not sure you want to do this, reach out. Sara's not going to be mad. She's,
Oh.
she's wonderful to talk to. Oh, watch out when she is mad. No, I'm just kidding. Mostly. Um, but Sara
Someone
is,
was someone was
yes.
patronizing to me the other day.
It was real bad.
I have
Don't be
been a nurse
patronizing.
for 13 years. I can deal with grumpy, I can deal with upset, I can deal with people who are sad and stressed and hungry and all the things. I've raised teenage children, but this person was like being real patronizing to me the other day. It pissed me off. I'll probably cut this out. But
Don't cut it out. Leave it.
oh my God, I
So
was
don't be
so mad.
patronizing. She was real mad. I had the 10-minute message to prove it on our personal podcast. But anyway, Sara is wonderful and would love to talk to you about your book. So I highly encourage you to reach out to her. I feel incredibly lucky that I have gotten to work with her these past several years, and I have no doubt that my books and my writing have improved as a result. So with that said, your assignment, sararead.net, check it out, hit that contact button. You will not regret it. Thank you for joining us today on our episode all about Sara Read's author coaching business. That's all for today, unless Sara has anything else to add. No. Okay.
Thank you, Jess.
Bye.